Hey guys, what's going on? Seth here from REtipster.com. In this video, I'm going to show you this little gadget I bought about a month ago called the Rylo 360 camera. The reason I got this and the reason I want to tell you about it is because I've had a few friends who are like house flippers or real estate agents, and they think that this kind of thing is really helpful to have in a trade. And it's basically a 360 camera. So, I mean, you can essentially take this thing and hold it up any which way. It doesn't matter where it's facing. The idea is to just walk through a property, maybe inside, maybe outside, maybe around it, just to give a good 360 view of everything the property has to offer from a visual standpoint. And I think there's a couple reasons why this kind of thing can be helpful. First of all, it's kind of idiot proof. I mean, as long as you're smart enough to know how to turn it on, and then push the button again to record it, and then push the button again to stop it, that's all you have to do. Like, you don't have to make sure you're pointing it at just the right angle or anything like that, because it gets everything. So, I mean, pretty much anywhere you go, it's gonna pick up the image, and then you can edit it afterwards. And that's the other cool thing about it, is that there is a little short cord that plugs into this end, and the other end plugs into your phone. It works with either an iPhone or an Android, and Rylo has a really good app. Makes it really easy to edit the video, so you can make the view of the video point in any direction you want, or you can make it track on certain objects. And I mean, really, you just like push on the screen where you want it to point as you're walking around the property, and it'll do that. So this thing also has phenomenal stabilization, which basically means as you're walking around a property or through a property, it's not gonna have like shaky footage. And the reason it's able to do this is because you're getting a 360 view of everything, and because the software is able to level out any micro jitters that are in the video footage. And I know if you were to use like a DSLR camera or even an iPhone, those cameras are getting better from the standpoint of having stabilization in them, but I still don't think they're quite as good as this. You can actually spend hundreds of dollars to buy gimbals and stabilizers for those more expensive cameras, but with this thing, the stabilization is just built right into the software. So no matter what you do, it's going to be pretty smooth looking footage. And I think this kind of thing was actually designed, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I think it was designed for like action and thrill seekers in mind, like kind of an alternative to a GoPro camera, because that's kind of what the look and feel of this footage looks like. It has like that wide angle, sort of curved look to it, which I'll talk about in just a second. But I think this kind of thing is cool for that. It's not necessarily built for real estate professionals, but it still can be used in the real estate industry if you have a need for doing property tours, maybe doing inspections, and you can't be at the property, but somebody else can, and they can just walk through their property with this thing for you, and you can get a 360 view of everything. Or if you want to use this kind of thing to create really informative property listing videos, where again, you can just set this thing up, it'll take the video, and then the buyers in your market that are looking at your listing, they can just look around the room, because all you have to do is upload this kind of video to YouTube, and it will allow people to do that, where you can just like scroll around the video and see whatever it is that you want to see. Now, with all that said, I think there's also a few things worth noting that I actually don't like that much about this camera. And the first one is, the thing is kind of expensive. It's like 500 bucks at the time of this recording anyway. There's definitely cameras out there that are a lot more than 500 bucks, so it's not like it's ridiculous. But after having used this thing for about a month now and shooting several different videos and seeing what it can do, I'm not sure if it's worth 500 bucks, honestly. Like, if I had to buy this thing again, I'd probably look for a used one on eBay or something like that. I'd probably be willing to pay like 300, maybe 400, but 500, I don't know. It's kind of up there. I'm not sure it's like worth that price point, but it can still be helpful. It helps from like the idiot-proof standpoint, in that it doesn't matter what you're pointing the camera at, so you can give this to somebody who's pretty incompetent with the camera, and the footage will still come out pretty good in the end. The other thing I noticed about this camera is that I don't think it's necessarily what you call a low light camera, because when I was shooting some video clips on the interior of a few different houses, I noticed that the footage came out a little grainy. Like, this thing wasn't necessarily meant to be shot in situations where there's not a lot of natural or even artificial light. If you are going to get one of these things, just make sure that there's plenty of light. If you're shooting things outside, it's probably just going to take care of itself, unless you're shooting at like nighttime or something. So just make sure you're shooting either during the daytime, or if you're shooting an interior shot, make sure you got every possible window open. Make sure you turn on every possible light, because this camera is going to need that light in order to show the best possible footage. The other thing I can say about this camera is that it definitely has a wide angle look to it, which, you know, is kind of a given since it's a 360 camera, and that's the only way it can possibly see everything is by having a super wide angle to it. But one of the trade-offs with having a super wide angle lens like that is that it sort of distorts things on the outside edge of the frame. And what I mean by that is, like, whenever you see something that's supposed to be a straight line, like a window or a door or the corner of a wall or something like that, the closer it gets to the edge of the frame, it's going to start to look like curved and warped a little bit, which isn't necessarily what you want. And when you want to really understand and get the best perspective of what a property looks like, seeing that kind of distortion and warping to the image is not really necessarily helpful. I don't think it's like a deal killer, but I think if you were to use like a higher end mirrorless or DSLR camera, kind of like the one I'm shooting this video on right now, you wouldn't get nearly as much or any of that kind of warping of straight lines. I don't know if warping or distortion are the right words to use for that, but you get the point, you know what I mean. I will say, from just like an ease of use perspective, the camera is super easy to use. Just the feel of it feels like there's a really good build quality to it. Literally, there's just one button on the thing, so it's kind of hard to mess anything up. The app is really easy to use as well, and it works pretty good. I think last time I checked, it had a good rating in the App Store, so they did a pretty good job with that. So, is this thing a necessity if you're a real estate professional? Absolutely not. I don't think so, but is it cool and fun, and can it be helpful in certain situations? Say if you're like investing remotely and you can't get to the property yourself, but you want to have a good visual inspection of the property, you could give somebody one of these things, or if they already have one, they could go and do that inspection for you. Or again, say if you're like trying to sell a property and you want to give your buyers a really good look at the property as though they're actually standing on it themselves, you can go ahead, set this thing up on a tripod, hit record, walk away for a few minutes, and then come back. Do a few different shots of that in different rooms of the house. Or say if you're doing a vacant lot, you could do it from different corners of the property, just so people can get a really good idea of what the property is like on site. And that's something you can't really do with any kind of a tool other than this kind of thing. So again, not a necessity, but it could be kind of helpful depending on what you need it for. And just to be clear, Rylo is not paying me to talk about this thing. I actually reached out to them to ask if I could get a free one of these things so I could do this review, and they said no. But I still wanted to do it anyway, so I went out and bought one. So it's not like I'm getting paid to talk about this, and I don't get paid if you buy anything. I just think it's worth knowing about, because for some people, in some situations, it could be kind of helpful. Just wanted to share that with you guys. Hope you're doing well. I'll talk to you next time.